Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Allison Wiltz. I have a PhD in psychology, and I've written over 1,200 essays on race, women, and history. I'm an independent writer, and I like to talk about controversial issues that kind of like push the narrative forward. So that's me in a nutshell. Nice to meet you.
Thanks so much for coming on, Allison.
And we try to our objective with this, and it's a Thursday, but with all the insanity of the world, we try to just talk about films and forget about it, but it's almost impossible. And the latest thing that happened, I wanted to get your feedback on this one, Allison, because there's been that text purge, the white supremacy chat, and all instantly, and this ties into Ben because Ben writes the Gen Z report, and instantly seeing people try to act like it's no big deal. Like, well, Gen Z has a weird sense of humor. But a weird thing happened to me today because I was writing, it's like, it's not Gen Z. It's the white supremacy that's the problem. But then the response to that, all these people they were like blaming young people, rather than, it's like it's like Americans do everything they can to avoid blaming white supremacy. Like even when you hold it right up in their face, they don't want to do it. So
Right.
I don't know if you can provide some insight into that, or because I was just
I
surprised by
feel
how
like
many people were burying the lead.
when it comes to white people, there's always this effort to make them like an infant in terms of helping them get away with culpability, whereas with black people, it's just the opposite. Black young people are adultified and kind of deprived this air of innocence. A lot of the people in those text chats are millennials like myself. I'm 37 years old, so I'm definitely not the youngest generation out there. And I think that, there's racism and there's white supremacy expressed in every generation. And what we're seeing is not just, white supremacists who just casually just don't like black people. What we're seeing is in those text messages, we're seeing, young Republicans who want to have positions of power in Congress or even, in the Oval Office one day. And a lot of them express some really hateful ideas about black people, about Jewish people, about women, about anyone who wasn't just like a straight white man who agreed with them, right? Because even if you don't agree with them, that seems to be disqualifying of humanity. And they, I don't think that those were jokes. I'm young enough to remember the jokes that we would make, and the jokes were never like, let's just kill a bunch of people because of their identity. The
Yeah,
jokes were more like, hey, let's maybe go streak in a park. Like that's maybe like the wildest thing we were like talking about doing is like just silly stuff that we're just being childish and just exploring what it was to be human. But we definitely weren't dehumanizing people. Like there's nothing childish about that. And I feel like the Republicans are going to brush it off the same way that they brush off when we find police officers who have those same type of chats. So that's one thing I can tell you that black people I've talked to are really tired of. We're tired of white people feeling like, oh my God, I'm so shocked to learn this. This is a consistent pattern since the Confederacy. This is the
hmm
same political movement that was never properly squashed. And it's manifested itself into the modern day MAGA movement. And we shouldn't dissuade ourselves about the significance of what this unveiled. This unveiled the fact that a lot of the future leaders in this country are even more extreme than what we would consider, like when I was growing up, Bush was considered far right. Like these
yeah,
people are way, way to the right of anybody that we've seen before Trump, in my lifetime. And I think that, they're not kids. They're not kids that are like 16 and 17. They're not even like 20, 21, 22. They're
yeah,
like in their 30s and 40s. Like they're millennials. I'm a millennial. So it's like, let's talk about the white supremacy
yeah,
it's in our generation, unfortunately. Every generation thinks they're going to be the exception. But I can tell you firsthand that millennials, we had to learn that we're no different from all the generations that came before us. We have the same type of problems that we face. And I'm hoping that this could be a wake up call for some people. But at the same time, I'm hesitant because of the way that things have been ignored in the past. If Americans paid attention to what Black people said in the 60s, when Dr. Martin Luther King was warning about the what he called a native fascism that was taking place among segregationists, he made it very clear that the people that were racist in this country also were against democracy. And I feel like if those rights were, if that message like came home, right, then we wouldn't be in the position we're in now. But for some reason, people kind of assumed that all of these deprivation of rights would only impact Black people. And now that we're seeing white people be physically assaulted by police officers, we're seeing, a priest be hit in the face by ICE with some type of
Rubber bullet. Yeah.
non-fatal weapon. And so what we see is we see fascism taking hold. And all I can say is, I wish I could say it's not too late. I hope it's not too late. But ultimately, people need to stop acting surprised and start mobilizing and working together.
Ben, as our Gen Z representative, I was curious about your perspective on that. Where it's like, yeah, instantly, let's just disregard the bigger issues and blame younger generations again. I had to put up with that crap too. I'm Gen X. Everybody does. Millennials certainly have. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I'm sort of two minds on this issue because I think that maybe there is a bit of a generational gap on this issue because I remember that in the especially in the very diverse district that I lived in, I think that had kind of two effects on us. Where, on one hand, at the end of the day, I think we were more tolerant as a result of it. But because we were more exposed to different races and the kind of stereotypes that go along with them, I think that we were more willing to tell racially charged jokes than some of our neighboring
Oh,
districts. And it was never with an embedded element of hate behind it, but I do think back on these kinds of jokes that we told at age like 14 to 18, and they aren't things that I would be very comfortable with leaving my mouth today. But at the same time, why I feel conflicted about this is because I think that something has been a little bit deceptive in the way that this story is told, and it's mostly people who are above the age of 20 who are speaking in this way. And it's those people who I'm less willing to give a pass. Like, yeah, at 14, 15, we told some pretty messed up jokes at times, but this isn't something that you can just be neatly swept under that umbrella. I think that there is a very deeply, deeply problematic element of real racism in a lot of these young Republicans.
Well, I would just push back against something you said. So stereotypes are a form of hatred. Like if you look at racism from a psychological standpoint as it's been defined by scientists, then actually stereotypes are actually one of the ways in which racism is perpetuated. Because see, when you believe those type of stereotypes, it's because a lot of times people have lack of access to a group of people. And so they
Yes.
believe the stereotype instead of reality. So even though people tend to not think of that as racism, that was
Yeah.
racism. And I can just tell you as a Black woman, we didn't have those conversations in our circles where we were making those type. We made fun of one another, like, oh, so and so's got a big butt, so and so looks like this. But it was never about like generalizing like this type of person. And I
right.
maybe that's just because I went to a school that was majority Black.
Mhm.
So we weren't attacking one another for our identity. That's something
Yeah.
that's very foreign to us. So I can say, some of it's generational, and then some of it's also racial in terms of, you know, what the type of and gendered, right? The type
Yeah.
because some of the people were pro rape. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally was assaulted in school, so to me, I can say that yeah, there is young people that agree that are think that sexual assault is funny, right? But
Yeah.
that's not necessary. I would just push back against that. It kind of reminds me of like a boys will be boys type of thing, where Melania was very dismissive of the things that Donald Trump said about grabbing women by the pussy because
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
pretty much saying nothing was really meant of it. Oh, that's just locker room talk. Well, I could just tell you as a Black woman, that's terrifying locker room talk. If that's when the hoods come off, if that's what's being discussed, then that's utterly terrifying to me.
Yeah. And I think you made such an important point just now, Allison, because we've got a whole generation of kids that have been raised thinking that the behavior of this just deplorable person who got into the office, the Oval Office, the things he said are just awful and they're unacceptable things. So much of what he says, like on any given day, he'll say all these awful things. So we've got a whole generation of kids. And this is something I struggle a lot with too. I never made these racial comments, but there's a lot of things I said when I was 12 or 13 and you're trying to figure out sexuality. I think that's kind of what Ben was talking about, especially when you're around people that normalize hateful behavior. And this kind of gets into my thoughts on our movie talk too, because sometimes I'll watch a movie and I'm like, I'll have fond memories of a movie, but it's from before, when I was 12 or 13 and I hadn't had any kind of a racial awakening. And then I'm seeing a lot of problematic things in it. And I'm just like, remorseful. It's like, how did I ever appreciate or like this movie? But then you have to have a little grace with yourself because you're constantly pressured with this, white supremacy
Right.
mindset where it's normalized. And so, but then we have these multiple layers of deceit, because number one, they're already diverting the narrative away from the fact that they're rape apologists and white supremacy apologists, and they're blaming Gen Z. And then it's like not even
It's
Gen Z.
unacceptable
It's
to
like,
blame Gen Z, especially when some of the culprits, a lot of the culprits are millennials. They're my generation people. They're white people from my generation. And I do feel like it is a type of privileged perspective to say, I hadn't had my racial awakening yet. Because in a way,
yeah,
I've never had
yeah,
the privilege to just
yeah,
think of myself as some neutral being that's
yep,
unracialized. Like I've never had the privilege. I've always had to, even when I was a little girl, it was like, what are we gonna do with your hair?
yeah,
Your hair has to
yeah,
be chemically altered so that you can be socially acceptable. So it's like I just definitely feel like, of course, someone having white privilege, no one asked for this, right? But ultimately, it is a type of privilege that you can move through life and say, you know what, there's a time when I'm going to become aware of race, and just kind of keep in mind that people that are black and people that are people of color
yeah,
that like present as such, they never have the privilege to say, I want to talk about, I want to focus on my race. Like, for example, when the white supremacist Peyton Gendron killed those 10 black people in the New York grocery store, we don't know if those black people identified as black, if they like to talk about race, if they didn't like to talk about race. They didn't get to
yeah,
choose. Simply by being black, you're going to be subjected to different things. And even as young as infants, we know that black infants are more likely to die in the care of white doctors. So it's like, once again, from the moment you're a kid, like you don't have to think about race, but race is happening. Like it's
yeah,
something that's happening whether you're I guess aware of it or not. And
yeah,
I just think this is kind of exposing how different upbringings, right?
yeah,
How our identity matched with our upbringings. Because a lot of things we attribute to generations, I feel like I see a lot of the same things going on. Like we too, as millennials, thought we were going to be the ones, right? We were going to be the ones to get it right.
Mm.
We thought that, the other people were, more prejudiced and that we would be different, that we could see eye to eye, that we all had so much fun together. If nothing was going to matter. But I can tell you, as like, I guess, like a growing, more cynical millennial, that I think we all are going to ultimately face a lot of the same challenges. And I think we should be careful of kind of, it's a difference between acknowledging that we have these different experiences and then almost like kind of giving room for that to be legitimized, for like that type of racial ignorance to be legitimized, when we know that even black children are subjected to racism in school. They recently had a photo of a black girl that was on all over Twitter where her face was brutalized by white kids. And yet we're constantly told, well, white kids are so innocent. We can't talk about race in school. But yet our kids are actually getting
yeah,
beat and brutalized by people that are very much aware of our race. So it's like, where does that leave us? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I think that the true problem and the reason why the Supreme Court is trying to gut the Voting Rights Act, they're
mm,
using the same justification they did to gut the race-based affirmative action policies. They are adopting a colorblind perspective. And that's exactly what my actual dissertation research revealed, is that the people that were colorblind, that believed in the colorblind ideology, were actually the most likely to oppose affirmative action policies, which I thought was interesting because part of my hypothesis was that people who believed in social dominance would be the greatest barrier. But in reality, it was the people who said race didn't matter that were actually holding back racial progress. So with that in mind, I just will always encourage people to, it's okay if you didn't have a racialized view, but understand how harmful
mm,
that neutrality is to the people that are subjected to racism. And how does that play a role now when they're trying to gut the Voting Rights Act by saying that black people don't need those protections? They're not doing that from a so-called openly racist perspective. They're doing it from a colorblind perspective. So you
yes,
can see how powerful that ideology is in actually dismantling some of the progress we've made since civil rights, and also possibly bringing us back to an era that is a lot more similar to Jim Crow than it was to maybe the 80s when I was born, you know?
yeah. I think, and then I've noticed too that this white supremacy, I've been just calling it the mind virus, the white supremacy mind virus, and they target children. Children are targeted. And I think that's why we're seeing so much protections for pedophilia, with this current regime, because they just abusing kids is part of it. And so, my experience growing up was thinking this is, sick. I couldn't eat food at school because everything was so
Right.
hostile. And it was like, and it was all, but I mean, a lot of that was because, I was interested in educating myself and learning about, and there was so much pressure. And I guess at the time I didn't know, I was aware that it was evil. I didn't know about this racial element. And eventually that's what led to me leaving the country. But it took all this time, like growing up at a conservative, just hostile indoctrination center. And I've talked about it with Will Fullwood a lot. He's just like, it hurts everybody. It hurts everybody. This mind virus, this hate, and then all these justifications. Because today, when I posted about it, and all the people who responded, they wanted to talk about, well, young people should grow up and be accountable for themselves. And it's like, denounce white supremacy instead. You don't have to attack kids. You're attacking people, and they've been caught up in this mechanism. And like, some people don't want to be there, and it's imposed on so many
MAGA is
people.
radicalizing young people. When I was going to school, and not to sound like an old head, because I'm only 37, but
I'm old. I'm the
when
old
I
one.
was in schools were not getting shot up. I went to school in a black neighborhood. My school never got shot up. From pre-K to graduating high school, my school never got shot up. Nobody's school I even knew got shot up. So
Cheers to
this
not having
this
your school shut
became a
up.
thing after Columbine, and it is predominantly white young men who are doing these shootings. And I feel like anytime a black person commits a crime, anytime a black person does anything, it's like, oh, well, what's going on with the black community, black on black crime? But it's like you literally have white people that are making children, or white teenagers, I should say, because a lot of them are minors, teenagers and young people who are like becoming homicidal. And we're not really talking about that. It's almost like we're not, when a white person does it, it's individualized. When a black person or an immigrant or someone else does that, it's like it's extrapolated to everyone. And back to our original conversation about stereotypes, that's what stereotyping is. And it's deadly. We saw that when it happens to somebody a long time ago, like Emmett Till, where the rumor, the lie that black men were out here raping women was used to lynch a young person. We saw that when the youngest person who's been executed in this country, George Stinney, was executed after they lied and said he raped and killed two white girls when he was actually someone who was trying to find them. So we see that happen time and time again, where you know unbeknownst to everyone. Like everybody tries to act like so innocent about it. But what pisses me off is that we kind of can't come up with a real opposition to what Trump is doing. If our resistance is, well, let's just not be white supremacists. That's simply not good enough. That is a good start, but we have to start talking about what is the opposite of that. What is the
Mhm.
opposite of someone that wants to segregate? What is the opposite of someone who thinks that inclusivity is a bad thing, right? Because I grew up in an era where diversity was seen as good, where we saw people that looked like everyone on the TV. When we had the Power Rangers, we knew we had a black Power Ranger, we had an Asian Power Ranger, we tried to have more diversity. And we grew up thinking that was a good thing, that when we come together, we're better for it. And if someone is pushing
Yeah.
hatred, we have to understand, well, what are we pushing as opposed to that? Because what I'm concerned about is that we don't really have a true resistance in this country. Because
Yes.
even though a lot of people don't like Trump, we're really kind of divided a lot on what it is we really do stand for. What does the resistance stand for? What would it offer that is dramatically different from this?
I, you know, Ben, I'm curious what your thoughts are now because, yeah, I'm thinking after what Allison said, because it has been a steady decline. Because it used to be, and at least the idea of diversity was embraced. There would be celebrated efforts, and now it has transformed over the last maybe 15 years, where there's a deliberate effort to just remove that entirely. I don't know what, and so Ben, you've had less of experience of that. So I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, it was a really interesting dichotomy in my own district because, like I said before, we were extremely, extremely diverse, and it was something the district prided itself on a lot. But oftentimes, how that looked was classes that were inadvertently segregated and lunch tables that were inadvertently segregated. And we did ultimately come together and have a lot of interracial friend groups, but there was no concealing that that kind of segregation that emerged anyway. And it was a really weird component having us simultaneously brag, oh, look at how diverse we are. We've got this percentage of students from this race and this race and this race, and how wonderful. But there were speed bumps along the way.
Yeah, and the disparities never went away. Because what you're describing, the reason why America remains mostly segregated by race and class is because of racial redlining. So when you have white people having approximately 10 times the wealth as black people cannot move throughout society. So
Yeah.
even though technically segregation is no longer legal, how do you get from point A to point B?
Yeah.
Well, Kamala Harris, the first black vice president, she actually was bused to school. That was a policy. That was a form of affirmative action where they were taking affirmative action to try to start to desegregate some of these schools. But what we found out ultimately is in this school, most school funding is tied to property tax, and property taxes are lower in Black communities because of racial redlining. So that's why I'm a big proponent on us having structural change, because white people have more social, economic, and political power. So while there might be some friendships and some interracial mingling, unless we're going to really challenge the power structure that inappropriately allocates, disproportionately to white people, then we're going to have the same system. So that's what I would like. I want people to have more. I want us to have, I feel like diversity didn't go far enough, right?
Yeah.
Diversity is a great idea, but ultimately we need to have a society that's equitable, right? That's like the Civil Rights Act and most of that era was about making actual segregation illegal, actual discrimination, if we could catch you, illegal, of public accommodations. But when it comes to actually addressing the disparities, nothing was done. And as we know, after the Civil War, the reparations that were starting to be administered were taken back after Lincoln was assassinated. And the civil rights era did not have a component of it where it was engaged in restorative justice. The closest it came, I would say, would be some of these affirmative action programs, but we know that white women disproportionately benefited from them. And as somebody who studied race-based affirmative action policies in particular, I always feel like the true solution is to push for equitable administration of these policies. Like we should, because there are socioeconomic status-based affirmative action policies. It's not just race-based. They actually have other types of policies. So if we push for a more equitable use, like if the goal becomes equity, then we create a better society, because then you won't have Asian Americans suing and saying they're being discriminated. You won't have Black Americans suing if we actually address the fundamental problem. And it is structural. So that's why I say I like that people are saying white supremacy is bad. I kind of want to see how does that look like in your politics? Are you going to vote for Trump 2028? And somehow tell me that you've learned your lesson? I mean, has a lesson been learned? I think we should start there. Has a lesson been learned? Has the suffering hit the white community enough where they feel that they would change what they've politically done in the past? Or is this nothing but the same, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a
Yeah.
fair question going into this no Kings rally, right?
So I'm
Well,
curious to ask.
everything is. Go
So
ahead.
I'm curious to ask your thoughts, segueing just a bit on the way that entertainment can drive culture and perpetuate some of these attitude shifts.
Yeah, I definitely think when it comes to art, right? I'm a writer, so I definitely believe art, all forms of art, because I went to art school. So even though I'm a writer, I don't think that we're the only or the best, right? There's all types of art forms. We have film, we have plays, we have poetry, we have photography, we have illustrations, we have everything, right? And I feel like all of this plays a role in driving culture. However, if we're being honest, Black culture has been a major contributor to American culture. It's like we're the most used, but like the most hated. Like they like our sound. A perfect example would be Elvis Presley. We know he didn't write that song. That was a Black woman, a Black, star who wrote that song, and he made it popular. He made it socially acceptable. But ultimately, this came from Black culture. So I feel like when it comes to our culture, I feel like you can't kind of remove Blackness from the equation, because a lot of times we're defining it. And this goes way back to minstrel shows, right? When back in the day, that was the most common form of American entertainment, and it revolved around making fun of Black people. So it's like, to me, if we're going to talk about culture, if we're going to talk about entertainment, it definitely has to do about race. We look at like how white people get frustrated when Black people play roles like Little Mermaid, even though she's like a fake character. And so when we look at it, like, I guess I would say that in the past, like growing up, seeing some more diverse characters, like I saw a lot. Because when I was growing up, when I would get girls' magazines like CoverGirl, there would never be a black girl. But then as I started to get older, I started to see more black girls and stuff. But the beauty advice was still horrible inside. It wasn't really meant for us. Like we would try to do it with our hair or something. We were like, wait, no, a white person wrote this. Like, but little by little, we got more representation. But now the problem I would say in the modern era is that you might see more black faces, but maybe they're not being treated as, they're not making what the white people are making or that sort of thing. So I think that art always has a role in driving culture. And if anything, I get frustrated with some of the music that it's not really reflective of what we're going through. And as much as I love hip hop, it's like, I don't want to hear about how much money you have when I live in New Orleans and the average medium income for black families is $14,000. Like, so we can have fun and we can stunt, but that's not reflective of what most people are going through. So I like a lot. I've been into a lot of portraits lately. I've been looking at a lot of visual art. And I do listen to music, but a lot of the music I listen to is a little older, because I don't know if I'm missing it, but a lot of the music kind of is like dystopian in that it focuses on just being glamorous and beautiful and happy and rich and fulfilled romantically. And it's like in real life, everybody's just like a mess and barely trying to hold it together. And I kind of want more music to kind of reflect that chaotic time that we're at, I saw a country song going off on ice. I say more of that. Give us more.
Yeah,
of that.
we've talked about that too. How it seems like there used to be protest songs, and there used to be films that would be like, "This is the reality." Or
remember,
they used
fuck
films.
the police. Fuck the police. We used to have all types of songs that would nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, "Oh, don't say that. Don't say that."
And then
Is One Battle After Another a movie that either of you have gotten the chance to see yet?
No.
One battle after another. No,
yes.
Is that a new movie?
It is a new movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and I was really frustrated by the way that I did love the movie altogether, but what frustrated me a bit about it was that it touched on these very heavy racial themes in the beginning of the movie, and it just didn't really have all that much to say about them by the end of it. It opened up as though it was going to really say something meaningful to viewers, but in the end, that element ended up feeling kind of hollow for me because there's just so much going on and so much that it seemed poised to say, and it just, that element did fall kind of flat for me. I'd
Maybe
be curious
that's
to hear your
emblematic of our
thoughts.
times, though, that people are bringing up topics. They're like, "Ooh, let's talk race," and then they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you.
Right.
I'm not gonna steer you in one way. It's almost like a neutrality is taking over, and it's even infecting our art. If you know what I'm saying? If your analysis is cool, I'd still like to see the movie. I love watching movies. My favorite movie this year is Sinners, hands down. I cannot stop watching it over and over again. I love because normally I could be a little scared of scary movies, right? But that movie to me was so much about music. It was about music. It was about culture. They even talked about, Jim Crow and about how like black people that worked at plantations were paid like a store credit. And my grandpa, when he was a sharecropper, a sugarcane sharecropper, that's what they paid him, store credit. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. Like you could work your whole life and all you can do is afford to buy something from the store. And they're never going to sell you a bag of flour at a rate. They're never going to sell you stuff at a rate that allows you to be okay, And so it was so cool to see that included in the story. And also, I'm not going to lie, I did like the little bit of violence in the end when he shot up the Klan because it's like he gave them a warning. Do not come on my property. I'm being nice to you. But you came here to do violence and now you're dead on the floor. I gotta love it. I mean, that probably isn't the best part of the movie, but I definitely felt like it was like a full circle moment. I felt like it was about family. It was about love. It was about race too, obviously, because it's about black people in the South. But I definitely feel like it was about love and family and culture and the preservation of certain African and indigenous culture outside of white supremacy. And I love the connection between Irish people and black people. I loved like what Remick seemed to represent for me was even though he was still a bad guy because he's trying to force what he wants on them, I like that he was offering an alternative. If anything, he kind of reminds me of a liberal because what it was he's saying, I'm not going to hunt you down and kill you like the Klan. And in fact, I don't even hate you. but I still want what's yours. I want your culture. That's what he told. He's like, Sammy,
Yeah.
I want
Okay, yeah.
I want your culture. I want your stories and stuff like that. And it's one thing to say, hey, let's do this together and kind of get consent. But then when it stopped being consent, that's what makes him the bad guy. But I can't help but love his character, what he represented, because he spit the real when he said, these white people, they were never going to let y'all live in peace. This was going to be a slaughterhouse. And he kind of let them know that I'm trying to offer y'all something different. And one of the brothers went for it. I don't really think that was 100% consensual, obviously, because he consented to sex. He didn't consent to giving up his soul. But ultimately, like, that happened. And then you have the black woman who's really in touch with her African roots, who kind of chose, like, I'd rather die and see my ancestors in heaven. Because for Black people, the notion of ancestors is really important. And we always joke amongst Black people, we say, do white people have ancestors? Not technically, because we know y'all have ancestors, but does that mean the same thing to y'all? Because for her, it meant I would give up everlasting life that's guaranteed to know, because I believe that I'm going to be with my ancestors in the end. I thought that was beautiful. And I thought I couldn't stop watching that movie throughout the summer and just noticing different things about it, about letting white people in. Like, you know, how they were like, if we let them in, it's not that they didn't want them in, but it's like, what happens if that white girl accuses one of these Black men of doing something, then everything will
Yeah.
fall apart. Did y'all saw it, right? I know y'all saw it, because otherwise I just went on and on about a movie y'all did not
Oh, that's
see.
good. I'm glad you did. No, I haven't seen Sinners actually, but what you said, I know Ben has. But what you said reminded me of something like when I was dating my wife in Peru. A lot of her friends are like, "Be careful about white American men because they're
Yes.
really cold." And it was just like, and I was in Peru because it's like I knew that America was cold, and it's just
Right.
I actually, and in a conversation, I was talking with Will Fullwood, and they often say, like, America, it's often the cliche is America has no culture. And
Right.
one of our readers came in and said, nope, the culture of America is white supremacy, which was sort of like, whoo. And then I like what you're saying, too, like this messaging thing, because just getting people to admit white supremacy is a problem is hard. But you're right.
Mhm.
We do have to have that next step. But it's just like you run into this wall where people will just deflect. Like it's not that, and then they'll start. We got to blame Gen Z, and it's like all this
Well,
other stuff
Charlie
that's like
Kirk,
not
he
related.
suggested that Ketanji Brown Jackson and other Black women that got positions of power, that they didn't have the brain processing power to get to
Yeah.
that point. And if you look at her resume, it's actually insane
Yeah.
for someone to say that. You don't have her resume. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, you can't
Yeah.
go degree for degree with her, or even position for position with her. But see, that's what white supremacy does. Like, white supremacy is a myth that makes them think that they're superior, even when evidence shows we're all just people, right? Like, if you need an organ, best believe you would be willing to take it from a Black person. If you needed blood, you would take it from a Black person. Y'all used to make us breastfeed your kids. Like, we're human. You just have to stop being ridiculous, and side with the global majority. I'm starting to use
Yeah.
that word because the Black people that do use that term, I like it, because it's like a reminder that even though we might feel really estranged here in America and really mistreated and alone sometimes, we're really not. We're part of a global majority. We've just been so subjugated in different parts of the diaspora that we haven't been able to, like, get our power together. And the way I explained it to my friend is this. I said, if a Swedish person comes to America and is mistreated, they could risk problems with the Swedish government. When a Black American or African American, whatever we want to call ourselves, is harmed, Africa doesn't have the political power to say you will not mistreat that individual. And I think that, like, from a global perspective, I think it does help. You know, I can just say that white people have the level of support internationally that Black people often don't have. And look at Haiti. Haiti was forced to pay reparations to the country who enslaved their people. And even America helped to enforce that. So it just kind of shows you that we're constantly gaslit and told that race doesn't matter, that we shouldn't focus on race. And then, but we're
Yeah.
constantly subjected to discrimination because of our race. So I just can't wait till white people permanently get on board. I don't know if I will live to see that day, but I want them to be permanently on board, not just for a few Black squares, but for life. Like, commit to being on the right side of this thing. Because I can just tell you, as a writer who knows other writers, that the way this is going down, the people that are on the side of MAGA and that are on the side of these fascists and Nazis, there is no, like, erase the bolt siderism from your mind. You're gonna be on the wrong side of this. Just as the people that participated in Jim Crow, the the elderly people with the relics that they have that often get discovered that they took from lynchings and all these things, they're remembered as monsters. And so I just want people to really understand, like, you have a beautiful choice to make. It doesn't matter what choice you made yesterday. If you're alive, you have the ability to be able to choose whatever side you want, and just really consider that one side is asking to be treated with human dignity, and the other side is saying they don't deserve that. Like, it doesn't even seem like a difficult decision to me, because I don't have to be Palestinian to understand what's happening to them is wrong. I don't have to be Jewish to know that what was wrong, what happened to them in the Holocaust.
Yeah.
I don't have to be an identity to understand that it's wrong. So that's why I always scratch my head like, wait, why are white people acting like this is so hard for them? You know what I'm saying? Like, what we're asking isn't hard. We eat the same food. We have sex. We make babies. We're all doing the same thing. Like, just understand, just like fight for us to have equal rights, because that creates a society where you and your kids are going to be
Yep.
protected too. Because for all
Yep.
you know, your kid can marry a Black person. And then your grandkids could be Black. Like, what kind of life do you want them to live? Do you want them to have equitable opportunities? Or do you think, like Charlie Kirk did, that somehow Black people are undeserving of those opportunities? You know, I think it's time, like, I want people to make decisions. And I definitely think when it comes to movies, we're kind of like, if you look at Taylor Swift, because, like, just not to move from film to music, but it just made me think of it. So Taylor Swift, like, I don't think her music is bad or anything, but I've never listened to like a full album. I really don't understand. Like, when I was younger, I used to like, for context, I used to like Britney Spears. I used to like Madonna. I used to like Christina Aguilera. I've liked white artists. You know what I'm saying? Gwen Stefani. I'm just not understanding the superpower that is her, but I respect it. I do think that there's like some, like, she benefits from just like white mediocrity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like, you know, like, we grew up listening to Whitney Houston. If you're singing, we want you to make tears roll down our face, and it's like, it feels like for
Yeah.
white singers, like, she not coming like Adele. She not coming like Amy Winehouse. And that's not to say that
Yeah.
she's not a great artist, or everyone deserves to make their art, whether I like it or anybody likes it. But it is peculiar to me that she's like such a major artist. And I think it's like reflective of like how some white people are able to be like mediocre. Like, even Miley Cyrus to me is like great voice. Like, I'm just curious why that's their queen, if that makes any sense. Like, why is
Yeah.
that y'all's Beyonce? Like, I don't understand that part. So are y'all fans? Can you explain to me the mystique?
I was a
You
big
want
fan
go
of
ahead, Bill?
Taylor Swift back in the Love Story You Belong With Me era, so I've got some positive to say for her. But I agree with what you're saying, that she doesn't like sing from the soul in that same way as Amy Winehouse or Whitney Houston. I don't know. At the end of the day, music is subjective, and I know plenty of people of both race who go to their Taylor Swift concerts and cry their eyes out. But for me, yeah, it is people like Amy Winehouse and Whitney Houston who are really the more talented of that hierarchy
Well,
there.
yeah.
And part of me feels like
I
it's a little sad to me, because growing up, I used to hear really good songs on it. Like, we had Mariah Carey, we were spoiled. Like,
Yeah.
we had so many, you know, not just a cool sound, because, like, you know, anybody seems like they're able to create a cool sound these days, but an actual voice that, like, you just can't get enough of, you know, that sort of thing. Like, I think that it's weird that, like, if that's what comes out on top, like, if this
Yeah.
period is gonna be remembered for, like, that's scary.
Yeah, but that's not what's happening. And this is something, because it's like she's fine, but not like every
Yeah.
song. It doesn't have to be the whole day, a total block of her song and nobody else. And that's
Right.
the corporate control, though, because we've seen the media, because we don't get the movies that engage rough topics anymore, or even interesting topics. We don't get protest music anymore. It's like it's all controlled to this one kind of homogenous, just like you said, it's mediocre. It's like it's fine, but it's like, yeah, that control is out there, and we talk about this a lot. It feels like 50 years ago somebody's like, oh, we can't have these, we can't have movies that change how the hearts of humanity,
And
That
and
and
makes
so we have
sense.
to buy it up and control it. It's been consolidated down.
And Taylor
Go ahead.
Swift did kind of position herself to give a Taylor Swift did kind of position herself to really give a political message with this most recent album. I know she came out pretty boldly against Trump in the previous election, but I think that it was definitely a major shortcoming from Taylor Swift's prior work. I'm not quite a big enough fan to differentiate what it does and doesn't, but The earlier albums, I think there was just a much more common thread of lyricism and general creativity, and this one, just reading some of the lyrics of it, like, it did sound like Taylor Swift, but, man, there were a couple songs that were just so shallow and had so little to say that I cannot
I
really,
kind of blame the relationship.
yeah.
I feel like some of
Yeah,
the
I feel the
music
same
she
way.
writes is like when she's like maybe in a different emotional space. I think maybe being happy. And it also kind of reminds me of my friend who wants to be a writer, right? And she's like writing about bad stuff that happened to her. And her husband's like, why are you writing about your ex who hurt you? And I think sometimes, even though women don't want to admit it, sometimes being in a relationship could affect what you feel like saying, right? Like, maybe you're not saying
Yeah.
everything because everything wouldn't be good. So then what you do come out with ends up being a little shallow, if that makes any sense, because it's like there is no surface to it. Like you're trying to convince us he's the love of your life. If he is, then great. But the music ain't is not reflecting like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I just love him so much. He's just the
Right.
best thing since sliced bread. You know, but I am glad that I'm glad that she's continuing to make music. Music is important, right? Like I said,
Yeah.
even if I don't like music, if I don't like somebody's music, I still want them to make music, especially if they enjoy it. But
What
I
about Kid
do
Rock?
worry sometimes the right people are not making it to the top of our chart.
Should some people stop making music? Is Kid Rock allowed to stop making music?
Oh yeah, like yeah. No, don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot of people with music I would never like entertain. Like because even like when we talk about young earlier when we were talking about being young and stuff like that, I can say one artist I feel like I soured on is Lil Wayne. When I
Yeah.
was growing up, I'm from New Orleans. Like, of course, all of us, we used to just get his mixtapes to school. Like, because before anybody knew him, before he put out the Carter, you know what I'm saying? And he was putting out mixtapes after mixtapes. He was like feeding us with music. Like at least every year we would get 2 to 3 mixtapes. And, back in then everybody was using LimeWire to steal it. And so like, we always had like a fresh, bootleg CD of like Wayne and we would listen to it. And I think that we liked like his way with words, like his ability. But then as I got older, what I realized is that the content of what you're saying is really not good.
Yeah.
He talked about a black woman and he's like, you know, she would have looked better red, like saying she would have looked better if she was light skinned. I like a long hair, thick red bone. Like it's just like this obsession with color. Right. And he's a very dark skinned man. So it's just like he definitely struggles with a little anti-black. Like, I had to kind of learn this growing up. It's like, oh, he struggles with a little anti-blackness because even though he fetishizes light-skinned women, the first woman he had a kid with is very dark-skinned. He's very dark-skinned himself. His mother's very dark-skinned. You come from a very poor neighborhood in New Orleans. It's so bad to the point where now it's a little better. 20 years after Katrina, it's a little better. But it's so bad to the point where when I was looking for housing, and when I was saying it was on Apple and Eagle Street, that's where Lil Wayne grew up. And he just was looking like, you really think that we're about to move to Apple and Eagle? Like, that's how bad the community he grew up in, but when he got a little money, it's like, oh, I don't want no dark skinned girl and this, that, the other. And I'm like thinking to myself, why did we make him our king? Like, in New Orleans, like we treated him like he's just the king of our hip hop. And when you see somebody like Kendrick or somebody that kind of doesn't have that problem with anti-blackness, you know, then you start to see, well, damn, we should be demanding better representation in terms of art because like a lot of people got mad he wasn't headlining the Super Bowl, but I didn't want him to be headlining the Super Bowl because those songs that we liked when we were younger and we were just silly
Yeah.
and singing them, and there were a lot of them about being drugs and hurting other people, and they just really weren't. I mean, there was a couple of them that were kind of like inspirational, but and I like the song he did about George Bush when he talked about, I'm from the town where everybody drowned, and he starts talking about George Bush. But that ended up being not who he was artistically. And so, like, I do know what it's like to like certain things when you're younger and then grow and not like it such thing. And I do think there is a such thing as saying, it sucks that a lot of that is recorded because we were able to be silly and stuff and say stuff and kind of like navigate it with one another. We would go and shake our butt at the club and nobody would know it. Nowadays, It's everywhere. And so, yeah, it does seem like there's a lot less privacy, but I will say this, even with my privacy, I wasn't just like, I hate this group. I hate that group. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's kind of what concerns me is it's like, yeah, I do think it's valid to say like people have room to grow. Like any of those people that were on there. And I've known and I've talked to a couple of people who are actually ex-white supremacists. Like there is a pathway out of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But you do have to
Yeah.
want it, right? And if you're so offended that someone called you a racist, you're more worried about being offended and less like how it's like to me, you're like a drug addict. Like when you're ready to get help, we'll be there to help you. But it does take you to take the first step to say, I no longer want to be associated with this. This is who I was. And I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna live my life in a way that where that's no longer who I am. And I do think like when we kind of excuse it, we kind of like, I don't think there's anything wrong with us leaving room to grow, but I don't want to excuse it like saying you're young and this is okay. I want it to be like you're young and now what have you grown? Like, because when I was younger and I was a little kid, I heard people say the word gay a lot. And when I was younger, I didn't know
Yeah.
what that meant. And so me and my friends, we were just calling everything gay. That's gay, that
Yeah.
gay,
Mhm.
happy, this, that, the other. And my dad said, you need to be careful how you say that because there are gay people. And I was just like, well, what does that mean? You know, and he told me what gay people are. And my mom, we watched the First Wives Club together. And she was like, you see those women? They're in love. They're in a relationship. That's what gay is for women. And they taught me what it was. And they were like, so when you say gay, you know, make sure you're not saying it in a bad way. And so they taught me. I couldn't imagine what it would be like to grow up with parents that was like, who cares? We don't like it. You know what I'm saying? Like they kind of
Yeah.
were like making sure like that we don't go in the wrong direction or we don't become hateful of others even on accident. But I realized that that's a certain type of privilege in of itself because not everyone has family members that think that way or that are open minded like that or just feel like it's a duty to respect others. Like I was taught to respect others. And so when the trans debate came up and everybody was like, some people were mad at me because they're like, well, you're okay with people using what is it called? Like, you know, pronouns and stuff. And I'm like, well, we all of us have pronouns. And I explained it like this. I said, my parents taught me to respect someone. So if someone tells me this is who I am, then I will always address them as it's
Yeah.
never been a problem in my life. Like I couldn't imagine someone saying, I'm she, her. This is what you call me, and me saying he. That's antagonistic, and a lot of people are just being very dishonest about it. Whatever someone says they are, that has to be respected. And I also noticed that straight Black women get misgendered too when people get mad at us. Like they're quick to say,
Mm.
I can't explain it. It's like they're quick to say like that you're manly or this, that, the other. They did it to Megan Thee Stallion. You know, like they do it all the time. They did it to Michelle Obama where they, you know, they called her ape and
Yeah.
heels and they did compare her to the man. They did that to Serena Williams where they compared her to a man. When they don't like a Black woman, they say, well, you know what? We're going to take your womanness away. It's almost like acknowledging that being a woman or being attractive does have some power and they want to try to dead it by trying to say you're not that. And it's a very strange, but I just would say that you know, I was taught better, you know, and I feel like I'm willing to teach other better. I've had to teach people that I know, like, this is why what you're saying is a problem for me. Even though I'm straight, I don't care. Because see, once I'm educated about something, now I'm not about to let you do that in front of me. You know, and I think that we need to have that type of culture where Thanksgiving is coming, white people, and you're about to be tested. Are you or are you not about to are you going to feed these MAGA? Because if the food is good and you're feeding them, if those two
Mm.
ingredients, you're part of the problem. Because you're making them think that their hatred is socially acceptable because there is no
Yeah.
consequence to it. You have to treat them like, no, unfortunately, you're a fascist and a Nazi, and we'd love for you to come back when you're no longer associated with that
Yeah.
ideology. Like,
Uh,
easy for me to say, right? When I don't have that in my family. But at the same time, you do have to have some type of boundaries. And I feel like that's
yeah.
something white people can do is we joke a lot about who comes to the cookout. But who comes to your cookout? Who are you allowing? Like you know, you don't have to think of it in just our terms. How do you personally feel like what are you allowing in your communities? Because this racism ain't coming out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all are being quiet when
What
the
you were
old
saying
drunk
before,
uncle is saying something he shouldn't say. And you know
what
they
you
can't
said
cook,
before, Allison.
so make them starve.
Yeah. No, but what you said before was so important too about your friend who's writing and who's writing about her experiences. And there's so much of a mechanism in this country where we're not supposed to talk about certain things, not even in the point of like journaling. And then, but if you can get online and find these communities, and that's a lot of what these lives have been too. Because my experience is not the same as yours, Allison. That'll never be. It's not the same as my wife's. But in listening to you, it's like we're on either side of a bus, and you can tell me what's out the window on your side, and I can tell you what's out the window on my side. And together we can get a perspective of what the world really looks like. And that's really important. But also, I'm just finding when we allow ourselves to have these messages or embrace things a different way, you start taking away those layers of deceit that you've become used to, and it's this long process. It's not like one day you're a racist and one day you're
Right.
not. It's like there's like dit, and it's painful. It's like a painful process as you move, but then you live in life with your true like resonance and your true values, and you start to see all these things we've been lied to are the things that are causing all the problems in your life.
We used
And
to
so,
call
but
it woke,
it's really
but they said
unfortunate. Go
stop.
ahead.
We used to call that woke. We used to say stay woke. The craziest part to
Let's
me
call it that
is
again.
this: we never knew. First of all, woke was never for white people. Our goal was never to get y'all and make you woke. Woke was something we used to say to one another only. So say if you see like a police or you see something going down, somebody harassing somebody, you like stay woke, brother. Like in other words, just stay aware that racism exists and that it could put you in danger. Like it was a way to keep one another safe. Now it expanded beyond awareness of racial justice to be like awareness of any type of injustice. And then it became a way for white people to say, well, I don't want you to be woke. Well, see, you want us
Yeah.
to be. So, in other words, you don't want me to look at a brother and say, listen, stay woke. They out here. MAGA out here hurting people. Because, first of all, right now in this country, as much as we talk about hate crimes that other people endure, right? Black people, since Jim Crow, the statistic has remained the same. Even though we're between 13 and 14% of the population, we are the group that is most likely to be, harmed through hate crimes. So it's like, given that context, like, we do need to stay woke. We do, Black people. I can't speak for y'all. Y'all do what you want. I hope you join us, but it's like, that's not my business. But I can say for Black people, we can't afford to not be woke. Like, because you have to be aware that white people can hurt you. Look what happened to Kyron Lacey. Kyron Lacey was a star football player in Louisiana with an NFL career. He's driving up the street, minding his business, nice little car, and white people lie and say that he caused a hit-and-run accident that killed a 78-year-old white veteran. They arrested him. They accused him of first-degree murder, vehicular homicide, and fatal hit-and-run, federal hit-and-run. And then after all of that, unfortunately, as they were about to get the witnesses lined up for the grand jury, he committed suicide. Now, months later, his lawyer's coming out with all this evidence that shows a video that the accident actually happened before his car. Like, it was physically impossible for him to have caused the accident because it happened before his car arrived to that intersection. But because white people lied and ruined his career and kind of ruined his mental state, and he didn't think anybody was going to believe him. And it's really sad to me because, like, racism kills people. It hurts people. And, like, people just act like it's just hurt feelings about text messages. Personally, I don't care that white people hate me. I care that they have power over us, that they have more social, economic, and political power. If we were equals, like, you can hate me all you want because your hate doesn't cause any harm. Like, Black people feeling pissed off with white people doesn't do anything to them. It doesn't hurt them at the courts. It doesn't hurt them at the bank when they're trying to get a loan. It doesn't hurt them when they get pulled over by a police. So it's like me not liking you guys doesn't really do anything. But if a white person doesn't like you, it could literally put you in danger. And even as a kid, I told you about this, Walter, before, and I've written about this, but some of my neighbors, they used to call the police on us just for swimming in the pool that we had a key to. We were part of the community and we had a key to the pool. And even though I was a lifeguard, so me being there actually made everyone safer. They would call the police when we used the pool. And so we had to run. We literally had to grow up teaching my brother how to run. And he's like, why are we running from the police? We didn't do anything. I said, do you want to talk to them? We don't know what that white lady told them. You get what I'm saying? I'm like, and mom's not home, so I am running. And I suggest you run too. And it's like, that's what I talk about, like, about having the privilege to not think about race. Like, I wish we didn't have to think about it. But it's like when your neighbor's like standing with her hands on her hips and looking at you, like, what are you
Yeah.
kids doing? And we're telling her, like, hey, we got to keep, you see, like, the craziest part about it is this. The whole circle has access to the pool, but we're actually the house that is directly across from it. So it's like, I know you see us we've lived, there all my life, and it's like they every year, like literally 3 years in a row, to where we just gave up. We decided we were never gonna go swim in that pool again. We just had to. You're like, you win.
Mm.
So yeah, I just can tell you that I wish that white people would realize that it's not that black people want to focus on identity politics. It's not that we want to focus on any of this. We really wish that the system could be fixed so that we don't have to focus on. We could move on as human beings to something else, but we do need to get over this hump. I hope we can. I feel like people like Walter and you and the new generation, y'all give me hope. Y'all do give me hope.
Good.
But, just understand that millennials, we are trying, but also just in our defense, you see how they not getting off the power, like they're not getting off the seats of power. So even though the founding fathers were in
Yeah.
their 30s, I'm in
Oh,
my 30s, most people in their 30s are not in Congress. Most people in their 30s are not
yep.
in positions of power. We're actually still being run by Gen X, and even the generation before y'all is still kind of holding on as hard as they can. It's not as much like torch passing. So I hope that our generation does a better job of, learning what we can and then trying to empower y'all. Like, because I feel like we definitely have a responsibility, and y'all are gonna feel that way too. In the next 5, 10 years, as you start to see the little ones get bigger, then you're gonna start to realize, we all have this like cool responsibility to one another. Like in terms of culture, in terms of art, society, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. Thoughts, Ben? I'll let you have a moment. He's got a
I
lot to think about.
Yeah, that I don't know if I have an immediately thoughtful response apart from agreeing. Let's see, what do I have to say in reply there? Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit on the spot. I gotta mull that over a bit.
Okay, no, I think it's wonderful, but it's so wonderful, and I think what you're saying is great because it's just this messaging element, and what we keep because I keep interviewing candidates, right? I keep interviewing progressive candidates just to get people excited about the primaries, and it's so useful to talk to you, Allison, because I often go at it just because my family being an immigrant family, I'm like I don't feel safe, but they don't want to talk about that. And it's sort of like this is like in that context of these are the things we don't talk about. I'm just like we have to
Right.
force the issue. It's like
That's a
yeah,
problem.
I'm saying my kid.
I'm a
I'm waiting for my kid.
progressive, and I vote for Democrats. But I'm not satisfied with what a lot of what centrist Democrats do. And so I
Yeah,
want progressive Democrats have to me have the most sacred responsibility, because you have the responsibility to actually show us that there could be something different. And that does require standing up for immigrants. That does require standing up for Black people and marginalized groups, no matter in what way they're marginalized. We have a responsibility. And so I hope that the people you're talking to understand that we're really counting on them, and we're counting on them to put up a good
yeah,
fight like Mamdani did. Be like him.
yes,
Be just as charming and just do everything he did. Just get the
yeah,
textbook, read it, study it, do it.
and we have to normalize that kind of talk because those candidates get so much pressure. And I've been encouraging them, just saying we need to have primaries. Primaries allow candidates to go out and twice as many people are out talking to the people because the Democrats don't want primaries. They just want, well, that's our
Primaries make
candidate. You're going
I
to make
want
it
primaries because that makes people feel empowered, that they're part of the decision-making process. See, a lot of people are dissatisfied with the Democratic Party, and what I like to tell them is, well, when the
Yes,
primaries come, make sure that that's reflective in what you decide. Like, and I think I'm not going to say it was a mistake to not do primaries, because I remember the vibe at that time. And the vibe within the establishment was 100%. Like, there was no one who wanted to challenge her. So it's easy to say we should have had primaries, but who wanted to go against her? I guess no one did at that time, as much as we may disagree with that. Now, going forward, I do think that there need to be primaries. When it was the primaries, Biden didn't even make my top 3. If anything, it's kind of a tease, because some of the candidates you see are not going to get the support of the establishment Democrats. So sometimes it's a little disappointing, but we need to see different Democrats say how they feel and tell us about their policies.
yeah,
You know what I wish? I wish that I can just see a list of policies. I don't want to know your face. I don't want to see what you look like. Let's just talk ideas. And I wish that we could really kind of coalesce around what the agenda should be and then apply it individual. Because like we're doing too much personality stuff. If that makes any sense. Like I could care less if somebody's charming or not. What will you do with the pen? You know?
yeah. next time I organize one of those, I'll invite you to come along. You can be my co-host, and we'll talk to some candidates. But
Yeah,
it's
let's
because
do
it's just so
it.
important that they hear us, and they hear.
It
I've been
is.
telling them stuff like, just stop talking about taxing the rich. Just stop giving them
Yeah.
billions of dollars. Just like basic talking points that they should have. And I'm
Most
sure,
of the people
and
I've
I know
talked to
you'll
are
have more.
looking for resistance. We're looking for an organized resistance. And I would encourage, because obviously I'm not that well connected yet. I would say that I don't know who's organizing the No Kings protest, but I would encourage them. Do not have all, if you have that much power, because I don't have that much power to have millions of people come outside because I say so. If you have that much power, then you have a responsibility to start saying what's next. It means if you have all these emails, you need to have next steps. Do not treat this can't be just an
Yeah.
exhibit. I'm tired of white people coming out and protest like with these pink hats and everything, the whole 9 yards. If you're not serious about anything, then it's okay to just stay home and watch some Netflix. Like, because what I'm worried about is we're gonna see like the facade of resistance, right? When a lot of the
Yeah.
no, this is the problem I had at first. Some of the No Kings protesters, they were against the people that were protesting on behalf of Palestinians. They were kind of hard, like a lot of them that participated in those were actually critical of other protests that were a lot more generic, a lot less planned. And that's students' right to protest. Like, that's fundamental.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, I hope that we have action items. I hope that it doesn't end with people just coming to show themselves in the street. I hope they join local organizations or even found them. And also I wanted to just land on this with I know y'all saw the news story about NBC getting rid of the NBC Black, the Latino, the Asian. They decided they're getting rid of all of that. And so I just wanted to be clear that that's just another reason why independent Black media and diverse media is important, because we see that these white major companies, they may temporarily invest in us and gas us up and make us think, oh, things are going to be different now. You're going to have a whole section just dedicated to your issues. But what history has unfortunately shown us is that a lot of them are not committed for the long haul in making sure that we do have that voice. And I can say shout out to Medium, because even though they may not be like the best place in the
Mhm.
world, they actually said no to they didn't go with the
Yeah.
anti-DEI policies, and that's allowed me to continue to write there. So I do think that,
Yeah.
every little bit counts. Substack is amazing. They have, to me, Substack is just represents so much of like what we need in democracy, because it's allowing so many people to speak. And when people are fired by major networks, they come here and it just feels so, it feels like an after party, if that makes any sense, like an after party for journalists and writers of feeling like, you've been shunned by the establishment. Here's where you come. And now there's nobody in between you and your audience. And so I'm enjoying the freedom. I don't know about you guys, but I have definitely been enjoying it. And I hope that I get to talk to you later as well, because I definitely think millennials and Gen Zs need to connect. Because while we may not be that powerful now, like in 10, 15 years, we might. And then if there's anything we can
Yeah.
do to help, we
I would love to
will.
talk.
Because I kind of feel like we haven't got that help, so I want to do it right.
Well,
It's all about these connections. I want to ask, we're a little over time, but that's okay. I just love having you here always, Allison. And I just want to know, what are the things that were influential to you growing up? You already mentioned a couple of the musicians and stuff you listened to, but what kind of shows and films did you used to watch? I'm just curious about you.
So growing up, I used to
Oh,
always watch, so I grew up, I read more than I was watching TV at first. My mom used to have all Charles Dickens on her bookshelf, and Shakespeare. I would read a lot of that type of stuff before I got older and started finding more Black authors and stuff. In terms of TV show, I used to watch Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I I used to watch 106 in Park. I used to watch the Parkers. They used to have Moesha. We used to have really good TV. Different World. In terms of, to me, my favorite form is cartoons. I watch silly stuff, like I watch Rick and Morty, American Dad. I used to watch Family Guy more, but to me, American Dad is funnier. The alien can make you cry, like just it's so funny to me. So like I'm the type of person where I just definitely like to and I also like anime, right? We grew up with a lot of Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Bleach, that sort of thing. Pokemon, me and my friends and family, we still all play Pokemon. My boyfriend from the hood, I put him on Pokemon, and now he catches good Pokemon for me. So I'm definitely I'm definitely someone that encourages people, like, let's go to City Park and let's play Let's play Pokemon. And I've actually had little kids tell me like, why are you doing this? This is a cartoon. And I tell them, well, let me tell you something. When I was a millennial, when I was 6, 7 years old, that's when this came out. So you may think this is yours, but millennials we're never letting go of it. We love cartoons and we're never letting go of that either. I feel like cartoons are healing because that's what I watch in the background. Like I don't watch like reality TV shows and stuff like that. Like I only watched that like when I was super young. Now I watch like either shows like The Bear, like I like, Squid Game, like stuff like that. But I also love cartoons is the number one thing. That's what I watch when I'm cooking. That's when I watch before I go to sleep. Like when, my boyfriend don't try to put on a scary movie. As soon as he go to sleep, I'm putting the cartoons on. The cartoons are going to be on all damn night because that's the best. Like who doesn't want to just laugh and giggle? And I love how those shows can make you laugh when you don't even want to laugh. And when it comes to anime, I love how like their shows have like a deep sense of morality. Like, and I like how in depth they are with the characters. A lot of times with American cartoons, like the the bad guys will just be like they're bad, and it's like no depth. Whereas with the anime,
Ben
you're like,
says
oh
he has
my
to
god,
get
I
going,
almost
I
feel
see.
bad
So
for you.
hold on a second. Ben says he needs to go. So if you have to
Yeah,
go, Ben,
yeah, I hate to cut
let you
the
go. I'll
entertainment
stay on for
talk a little bit short. I was glad that you brought up some cartoons because I feel like they pick up a lot of the flack where many other movies and shows they don't really. They just don't cover these subjects. But Family Guy, South Park, American Dad, throughout the years, they've had some of the most incisive critique on the whole culture we're living through than I feel like so many shows and movies do. And I've always really enjoyed that aspect of them. But yeah, sorry I couldn't talk a little bit longer. It's always a delight meeting new people. Thank you so much for coming on, Allison.
Thanks, Ben. We'll see you.
See you guys.
Later.
I noticed his chat, and he didn't want to be rude and be like, "Oh shoot, I got this other meeting." But
I know. He did good though, but yeah, I absolutely love cartoons. Like I'm a silly person at heart. And I will also say that like my default is happiness. Like some stuff will happen and it'll kind of get me down right quick, but I get like it's hard to keep me down there. Like I get really like elated, like, and I get excited. Like a lot of times when I write about racial people, we're like, this person must be miserable and stuff. It's like, no, I feel like I'm doing stuff that makes me feel happy because like I'm pushing back against people being mean. Like I'm pushing back against bullies. First fight I ever got in my life was because this kid made fun of my sister, and I got in a fight in daycare and beat him up. And I'm very much the type of person where you could pick on me and I could take a good amount, but I'm very much defensive of others. And yeah, that's who I am.
I was going to ask you, have you seen the Mitchells versus the Machines?
The jeans? Oh, the
It's called
commercial?
No, it's a movie. It's a movie called The Mitchells versus the Machines.
No, tell me what happens.
It's really this tech bro designs this telephone that basically like takes over humanity, but the side plot is this kind of awkward dad and his daughter, and it was one of those. It's really funny. Just watch it, and they go on a road trip, and it's just yeah, all of humanity is absorbed. They have to save the day, so but you'd get a kick out of it. It's really fun, and if you like cartoons, honest to God, that was one of the ones the kids put on the TV, and I walked by, and then I'm just like, wait, what are you guys watching? And it's like
I've
that's
never
like
been there before in
that's
my
the
life.
dad test.
Right? I feel like maybe we should do a space one day that we just let's talk about like social issues that are presented in cartoons and cartoon movies and stuff like that. Because I feel like growing up, some of the cartoons like Captain Planet, that's what they need right now. They need Captain Planet. They need the old school heroes that we grew up watching.
And also, well, we've been watching a lot of cartoons. We just don't watch the news anymore. It's just all cartoons. But some of those cartoons from like 100 years ago are freaking weird. Like the ones that are like green and blue, like they don't have a full color. You're watching this, like what? And like the way they like torture kids and stuff in these cartoons, like, this is entertainment for kids from like 1910. You're like, yeah, you guys are messed up.
Tom
You're
and
right.
Jerry was kind of cool. Tom and Jerry was kind of cool, but but there was a lot of violence, And when I was a little kid, I didn't notice that. I said, "Well, if they're friends, how come they're just so mean to each other?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't understand that.
They used to tease it, the Itchy and Scratchy on The Simpsons, where they're just like it's so
Yeah.
absurdly violent. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that stuff.
At first,
Ah,
my
but
dad
it's
didn't want me watching The Simpsons, but He used to watch a lot of Bruce Lee with us and Godzilla. That was his favorite things to just put on the TV is Bruce Lee and Godzilla.
Did you watch K-pop Demon Hunter?
What's it called?
K-pop Demon Hunter? It's on
No, I
Netflix.
heard about
It's an
that one.
anime.
My little brother watches that. I saw him with a book sack with that on there.
Watch it. It's actually really you'll like it. The music is really good in it, and it's like what my kids are saying. It's like, why is this music so much better? It's like because it's from Korea, so it's like it's not American music. No, but it's really good. You'll and my kids they watched that 25 times this summer. It was just the only thing that was on the TV. So if you like cartoons, you'll like that one.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna check it out.
Oh, well, I don't know how much time you have. I can always keep you, but I know you're busy. I just love these talks, and it's just this process, and it's just there's so much stuff that I've been uncovering, just all the things I've been trying to figure out, like this mechanism, like the way back from hate, and a lot of what I'm trying to figure out is just like because you're forcefully indoctrinated with all this stuff, even if it's against your nature, and that's what I was
Right,
talking about before, where it's just like I don't like this, I don't like this, I'm being forced to do these things, and I was talking with Zuri Stevens about how, like on the playground, I had to like assault kids. Well, kids would attack you, and so I had to be, and it's like if you didn't fight back, you'd get it worse. So you had to, and it's like I don't like to beat on people, but
right,
it's just like this pugilistic society that we're in.
right. That's true.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like and then after enduring that though, then you have this memory of what you were forced to do because this indoctrination is so deceptive and deceitful, where they do things to you and then you make you also feel guilty for the things that were done to you and it just is ongoing. And I think that's a lot of why people just don't even want to bring it up. And it's just sort of like any abuse. You don't necessarily want to go into a room and talk about the ways you were abused,
Right.
but if we can just have like this collective humanity about how everybody, it's like if we were born in the United States, we were abused. I mean, this is an abusive country. It always has
Oh,
been.
it is.
And taking
You're
control
gonna
of the
you're gonna
messenger.
you're gonna probably endure violence in this country, and you know, that's why I'm a big proponent of self defense. I always try to tell people there's a very big distinction. You don't just go and attack anybody, and even if somebody hurt your feelings, that's not good enough. It's only when
Yeah,
they endanger you or endanger somebody you love and you feel like you can help, that's when you stop that person from doing harm. You don't just like take pleasure in hurting someone. In other words, like you make it to where they're like, "Are you ready to stop now?" Like that sort of thing, not just normal. It's a big difference because I feel like a lot of people kind of don't know the difference, and I think that's why people didn't like people like Malcolm X because he was saying that black people should defend ourselves, and white people were like, "Oh, that means you're violent," and it's like, no, it means that there are consequences if you cross that line. He said you should follow the law to the T, but if somebody puts his hands on you, send them to the cemetery. Now that's your business if you want to send them all the way there. You could send them to the hospital. But the bottom line is you don't get to tell someone how to respond to violence. Just don't be violent with others, and that's the best way to protect yourself. You know what I mean? I think that not harming people is a good way to live, and it also protects you. It's like a bonus because it's like, well, that means that it's not that likely for someone to hurt you because you're not going around trying to hurt others.
yeah, and standing up to bullies is one where I was talking about this with Will again too, and it's just like you'd be attacked by like four guys, so I would just kick these. This was like when I was 8 or 9 years. I'd just kick him in the groin. That would drop the first one, but it would also make the other like four ones not attack you. And it's like not something I like to do. It's not like, and I feel like, did you ever see A Christmas Story? The
Yeah.
movie A Christmas. So that scene where he beats up the bully and then he bursts into tears after it, and it's just sort of like it's fun
Right.
for laughs,
Because
but it's like
they didn't want to have to do that. It's stressful. It's stressful. You know
yes,
what I mean? Because you don't want somebody to have to take it. You don't want, but that's what I say about us, like mentally preparing for
yes,
self defense, because it's like this is how I make my peace with it. I'm like, and this is how black people. This is our thing. We give someone a verbal warning, meaning do not touch me. That to me, that gives me the mental release to where if you cross that line, I know I tried to prevent it. I tried to encourage you. I tried to reason with you. And then that way, when you have to do what you have to do to defend yourself, you don't feel bad later because you remember, you know what? I really didn't want this to get nasty. And I tried for it to not get nasty. You know what I mean? And that sort of thing, because trust me, they don't stay up at night thinking about the mean and nasty things that they've done, you know?
you know, and well, I've said too, like ultimately. and my perspective, a lot of it changes when you have kids, and it's just like because we get just into this habit of survival, and I think that's you can forgive. We can have great. We have to survive first. You're surviving, and we're adopting mechanisms to survive within this unjust society. But then you finally get to where you have kids and you're able to see that human beings are born kind, and hate is taught to them. And all these things like and if you just make the choice, don't teach your child hate. But then you also have to make the choice to defend them from hate. And so then it just makes you a little bit more willing. And I mean, this is something I said a lot because when I was 20, everyone's like, "Well, you be quiet. You don't have any experience." And when you're 30,
Right.
it's still, you don't know, you be quiet, other things. God damn it, I'm 50 now. It's time to speak.
Right.
At some point, it gets to be my
Right,
perspective,
at some
and it's like
point.
there's these yeah, and it's like and it helping encourage younger people like Ben, where sometimes they feel that pressure too, and it's like, darn it, you know what is a right way to behave. You know the things that are wrong, and we're told, "Oh, you're being disrespectful to patriot. You should be thanking this nation." That's what they say. You should be
That's
thanking
so
it for all the
creepy.
opportunity. And it's like we don't have to thank it. We can ask it to stop abusing us. That's a fair thing for us to say. So it's so important to speak out like that. Encourage others to speak too. Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely think we're doing the right thing by speaking our mind and then encouraging people to do so because, like, I'd say this is
Oh, we cut out. Are we there? We there? Come back. Come back. You froze up on me, Allison. Are you still there? Oh, oh no. I'm sorry. Oh, I lost her. Let me see if I can get her back. One for second here. One more second. We temporarily lost Allison. I guess we're kind of running along on time. Let me try and get her back so she can say goodbye. But in the meantime, I want to just thank everybody who's here. I oh shoot, I hope she's she just must have dropped her internet or maybe she dropped her phone. Are there any let's see. Oh yeah, Ben has his thing, happiness, joy. I'm just reading the messages. Thank you for the hearts. We'll just give her a few seconds here and see if she can come back. I hate just canceling and not being able to say goodbye. Any other thoughts? Anybody remaining in the chats? Any other questions? I could read some comments for a minute as we wait. Yeah, we just had somebody join, but we just lost my guest. I think maybe we might have had some sort of an internet connection issue. So I'll send her. Actually, let me just send her a quick. I can probably just send her a quick message here. The joys of living in the technological age as connections drop. Oh, okay. It says your phone needs to cool down. Okay. So I don't think she's able to come back. We were talking too much. We were lighting it up. So thank you everybody for joining. I'm always going to try to have Allison come back on again. She's one of my favorite people. Thanks to Ben and thanks to all of you. See you next time.